Thank you so much for joining me, everyone. I'm not going to say everyone's names because it would take too long, but these beautiful women here, I do get some inboxes about what I have been doing in the program I've been involved in, and these gorgeous women have been walking beside me for about 15 months on their own evolved journeys. It has been such a joy and such an honor to be able to learn with you guys. I never know how to explain you because I'm like, they're like my sisters that know everything about me, but we see each other once a quarter, which it's such a gift when we do get together. But this particular episode, I thought we could focus on rock bottoms. And I think that it sounds really dramatic, but a lot of us in our lives are going to hit a rock bottom or a low point in our life that we don't know how to come out of. And I think that the more people that talk about that and say, I got to a point where something had to change for me to be able to go on, I think it's really important. And we are coming into the silly season when all of these triggers and all these beautiful family members that trigger us come into our attraction, law of attraction. So I'm really wanting to jump in and start there. I thought tonight, because we're 4 chatty Cathys, I could just start with 4 questions. So my first question for you guys is, what was your own experience of rock bottom? And Kristi, you are my top left, so I'm hoping you will start.
Okay. I think, my version of rock bottom, I don't know if I'd call it that now, but I think the point where I felt least like myself in my life was after having my second child, my daughter Ailey, and got hit with, I guess, if you wanted to label it, postnatal depression, and was going through times of crying every day and not understanding why I was so reactive to my then 2-year-old, and feeling like I had no support in that time too, because I was just completely unable to verbalize what it was that I needed in that moment. And I guess, as your life changes, actually, as all girls know, how much, even going from 1 to 2, how much your life changes in time. And I just was completely unprepared for, I guess, the extra support that I would need. And I've never been great at asking for the support. So, struggled with thinking and trying that I had to do it all by myself. So it was probably when I felt, definitely the lowest point of my life.
I think motherhood brings up the biggest for us, like the most stuff, because it's such a triggering thing to become a mother and finally be faced with parenthood and having to look after someone other than yourself. It's a massive thing. Vanessa, what was your experience of, I'm just gonna say rock bottom, because that's what it feels like at the time, even when you come out of it and you're like, look, I see it had to happen. But yeah, what was your experience?
Yeah, and I guess from talking with parenting, for me is, I think, lots of thoughts that, like, I guess I hated being a parent at times, like feeling really trapped, trapped in my own thoughts, which then always brought me down during the day. Pressure on myself to be this perfect parent, or to be playing when I really hate it. I guess putting yourself down, because sometimes I would prefer to work than be at home. And then, I think for me, then I would use alcohol a lot to escape what felt like a really suffocating environment sometimes for me at home, because it was just where my children and home is my biggest triggers. Like every day, that's probably the hardest part, is that all the stuff that comes up here is where I have to actually really stop, think before I act. And so I think for me, it was just being in that really low place that I wasn't enjoying being around here. But definitely it's changed so much. And it's so, I do still see parents now with their little kids. And I was saying actually to someone in a morning tea on Tuesday, and it's funny this has come up now. I was just saying, yeah, having kids, like that's the hardest time of your life. And then one of them's like, oh no, I don't agree with that. No, definitely not. And I was just like in that moment, a bit like, oh, of course, like how embarrassing that you think it was so hard and no one did. And then I thought afterwards, well, no, it was hard. Like I did generally feel like it was really hard in those moments, and so much fear and anxiety and wanting to be the best. So yeah, I think that for me was like a bit of my, yeah, the rock bottom.
And it's interesting. So, like, we obviously have learned a lot about facades and that image and mask that people put on. You never know who's sitting around a table going, this is the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And, you know, when we speak up and own our truth, which is motherhood is fucking hard, you never know who else is sitting there going, oh my God, I'm not the only one, thank God, which I think is really powerful. Jaimie, my love.
Hello. Rock bottom for me after my first kid, I would say. I had so much judgment on myself. I was like, yeah, no, I'm a failure. I'm not a good mom. I'm too young because I was 21. I'm not doing this right. I couldn't breastfeed. So I just had so much judgment on myself. And now, just like, actually, you've made me reflect. It's just like, it was me. I done it all to myself. You know, I wasn't sitting at home all day doing what the stereotypical, like what we were told we had to do growing up. But just I had so much judgment on myself. I was quite blue. I would use wine as a friend. Would not ask for help. Like asking for help was the wrong thing to do. You just had to do it all alone. And I remember just right now thinking like I think I was probably numb for a good 9 months after giving birth to my first child. I was just like, yeah. And because I did have an infection also after him when he was born. And I went to the doctors and they were like, no, 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 you're fine, you're fine. I had to go to 3 or 4 different doctors to find out that this wasn't made up in my head. There actually was something wrong. And it just made me think like I was the bad person. It was all my fault. You know, I didn't know. And why am I questioning the doctors? You know, just give away my power to everybody.
Yeah, and I think after you've been in such a vulnerable position, especially giving birth, yeah, it's like that vulnerability hangover. You're like you lost your power a little bit. You feel like you put yourself out there. Like, yeah, I resonate with that. I think for me, for myself, I haven't really shared it on my own sort of channels, but my rock bottom was after I had my son Flynn. You girls all know a lot about that. But I was diagnosed with OCD, postnatal OCD, and was sort of told that that was it. This was my life. And I suddenly hit a fork in the road where I was like, I can't live like this. This is not a life that I want to live. And I had to start taking some pretty radical action, which leads me to question number 2. Where did you start to find a new sense of self? So what was like the first thing you did when you realized that there was something off or that you didn't want to keep going like this? Kristi?
Oh, good question. I think for me, not as you girls know, not being the crier that, well, I'm starting to be. I was crying every day and I was like, okay, well, this is not normal for me. What's something that I can do to, see what's going on and take the next step to make me start feeling like myself again. So for me, it was going to the doctors and ended up getting a referral for a psychologist, which for me wasn't something that I hugely aligned with. But I think what it ended up being was just finding things that I used to do in my everyday life again that I had completely, given way to after having clubs. So yeah, just finding time and I think relying on my husband and people to take the kids and not have to feel like I had to bring them around everywhere with me. It was okay to have an hour to myself to pop to the gym or go get my nails done or, do something for me again that I was used to doing and that I love doing for myself. And I found by doing those things that's when I slowly started to feel better within myself again.
Yeah, it's a slow shift, I think, back to or past where you used to be, because I think we've all hit where we used to be and then just kept going. Like it's been a full involvement. Ness, what about you? Where did you start when you decided to make those changes?
I think for me, I had also gone to psychologists. I'd been on some like depression and anxiety medication, which, you know, really did help in the first instance. But I guess for me, like my behaviors weren't changing and my thoughts were still there. So I think, like, I guess really just doing this work, to be honest, like the last 15 months for me, I can, you know, and I was just reflecting even with my own sister-in-law, because she's got a new baby, and just like you sort of, I guess, mourn that period back, what like how you were. And I resonate with what you said, Jaimie, about just how hard you were on yourself. Like just, you know, you sort of think, oh, I wish I knew what I knew now, and I wish I was kinder to myself. But I think, yeah, really doing this work, feeling supported by other women who are honest about it being hard and saying that. And I think, yeah, like even the retreats that we go to, it's like the first time I've ever, you know, you go away without your children and your husband, and it's something that's acceptable and okay, which has been huge. Like if without doing this, I would never have done that. So slowly I'm feeling like, yeah, it's okay to be me as a person now, like, and just learning. And I think then being softer on myself with those earlier times with the kids, to being like, well, I know I was doing this because of this. So I think, yeah, it's a bit of a twofold thing, but yeah, definitely connecting with this group's definitely been very powerful for me.
Yeah, and you don't have to do by the books. Like I think all of us here have probably tried like mainstream, we'll go to a doctor, we'll see a psychologist, we'll figure it out that way. I think it's finding what works for you, which I love that you shared as well about medication initially helping, because I think for a lot of people it does help. It's not, you know, all bad, and I think it can save lives. So I think that's beautiful that you shared that. Thank you. Jaimie, my darling, where did you start?
Man, you girls. I was really stubborn, believe it or believe it not. And I did not reach out for help, but I got to a point where I was just like, am I allowed to say the F word?
Yeah, that right.
There has to be more to life. Like, you know, but I did, like, I was numb to everything, and just listening to you two talk, girls, it's just like, I was numb to the weather. I was numb to if I cut myself, burnt myself. I was numb to feeling everything. Like, and I let that drag out for so long. And then it just got to the point I was like, I had one or two thoughts thinking, why am I even here? Like, what is my purpose? Why am I on this earth? Should I even be here? You know? And then it's just like, fuck, I need help. What's going on? And then, yeah, lots happened. I moved country, and I don't think I haven't been at as peace as what I am now with my whole life, if that makes sense. Because growing up was a bit tough at times, but I haven't been at peace until
Gorgeous,
now.
girlfriend. So it was the first sort of thing that you did start out with Laura in this program?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. And my son's 14 now. You know
Mm.
what I mean? Like, I've waited really that long to actually look after myself and actually come to conclusions that I was in the baby blues. You know, I just thought there was something wrong with me. I was broken, you know.
Yeah, that numb feeling though is, I think, it's quite sneaky because it's there every day, and if it's there every day, then it's just a normal part of your day. Like it's
Day, night, the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not until you start laughing again or crying again or getting angry that you're like, oh, this is uncomfortable, because you're so used to being numb, right?
Yeah.
I think for me, my where I started was GP clinic, and she did the Edinburgh Depression Scale, and she's like, yes, you identify as anxious. I was like, yeah, you're fucking telling me I haven't slept in 3 weeks. And she's like, you know, here's the referral, and just think about medication. And then started seeing a psychologist, and my psychologist, thankfully at the time, said to me, she's like, you are going to get through this, and I don't believe, you know, that you need to see that GP for medication at this point. And I kept going to this psychologist for about 8 months, and I was functioning, but I was numb to everything, numb to my kids, not enjoying life. And yeah, I sat in that for almost 2 years, and then I started this work, and I think the missing piece was probably a bit of mind, body, and soul stuff. Like, I don't think you can just purely focus on the mind and get results. I think it's got to be a package deal, which I'm so glad that I found with you guys, because it's been a fucking ride. Looking back now, what habits stand out to you that you now recognize as negative or self-limiting? Kristi.
Well, something that I probably still catch myself doing, but distraction would be my biggest thing. And as much as so many of those habits that I used to do have dropped off, you know, we're always finding new ways to keep evolving in those areas that we wish to. So I used to find just like sitting and scrolling like online shopping constantly. Distraction with food, always, like there wouldn't be a night where I wouldn't be reaching for the chocolate out of the chocolate drawer. You know, those sorts of things were part of my everyday life that I would have thought there was nothing wrong with, until you start diving a little deeper and going, okay, why am I doing those things, or what am I distracting from in my life? But yeah, distraction 100% is something I still battle with, but a lot of those things have naturally fallen away during the work that we've been doing.
Massive stuff. Ness?
What's the question again?
That's all right. Looking back now, what habits stand out to you that you now recognize as negative or self-limiting?
Yeah, for me, it's like that projection of perfection, and that like my children were like, what's they called, like that mirror image of you. So it's like you had to have everything perfect, or if they had a tantrum, like I'd get so embarrassed or angry at my children, or just trying to perfect their lives. So even, you know, with Stella starting school, that's actually, I think, why when I went to the psychologist in the first place, because I'd enrolled her at 6 schools. I'd gone freaking crazy, like trying to perfect this perfect school experience when she hadn't even started school, and worrying about what school, where, and who. And like, I just went literally mental, trying to like, I think perfect every step, when I think for me, I guess it's the control part, because I feel safe with control. And so I think the biggest things with kids is you realize you can't have control in everything, and feeling okay with that, because they're their own person in a way, and you feeling comfortable with that. So that's something I definitely have learned, is to let them be their own person now, and step back and just feel that.
Imagine 20 years time, Ness, like what that's going to look like for them. Like, and that is, even if you can't start for yourself, you know, start for your kids, because it's a great place to start if you feel that you could be a better mother, or you feel that you might need to work on something. I think even having the humility to do that for them is just one step in the right direction. But yes, thank you. Jaimie, my darling.
Self-sabotage. Everything. Like, people be like, oh my god, he's so cute, he's what are you doing, blah blah blah. I'm like, oh, but this, but that, but oh, I didn't do this, oh, but I got it at this shop and not that shop. And just fully like everything was negative, you know. And just like, I never done a good enough job. But now I catch myself and learning when people give me confidence to say thank you. Yeah, that's good, isn't it? Like, but that took a lot of work, as you know. Like, even sometimes it makes me still feel very, very uncomfortable, but slowly getting there and teaching the kids, because they would have seen me going, no, oh, you know, I could have got it here, I could have done it there. And like, they say, even my son now, he says to me like, oh mom, you didn't knock it back. Ooh, like, you know. So
and they are little sponges, hey, like they totally see what you're doing. And I think especially like you know, Ness, you have a girl, I have a girl, Kristi, you have a girl as well. They're learning how to be little girls from us. You know, there's so much merit in teaching them how to look after themselves, and it's okay for mums to go away on a quarterly retreat, like all that stuff. Like that's really healthy actually, to get the fuck out of the house. I guess my own habits were, I think when I was single, definitely with men, that was the biggest thing. I had such a toxic relationship with men. And then when I got married very, very young. And I started to use Ben like in terms of trying to get things out of him. It was very manipulative in our relationships. I'd storm out during argument. Use the kids, like when we would argue, I'd put Ruby in the car and like go for a drive, like, haha, I'm leaving you. Which when you're with a man that doesn't have an abandonment wound, it does nothing. They're just like, oh, you went for a drive to cool off, that's great. So just, I guess, looking at those sorts of habits, as well as, I guess, the same as what you guys were saying about just regulation with your kids, because when they're losing their shit, I'd be like, what is this? I'd never acted like this. This is ridiculous. So yeah, those are my dirty little secrets that no one knew about that I was doing behind closed doors. One piece of advice for someone in their rock bottom right now, Kristi.
Oh, reach out for the support that feels right for you. I think that, you know, if it's a psychologist that feels right for you, go down that path. If it's somebody more down the holistic field, do your research and find people that align with you that way. I don't think it has to be that like one size fits all. I feel like all I knew at that time was I wasn't feeling right. I must go to a doctor, and then you see a psychologist, right? Like not realizing that there were so many different avenues out there. So yeah, I guess if something doesn't feel right, to just keep looking and seeing what kind of avenue feels right and best for you, because there definitely will be something out there. There's people that can absolutely help you move on from that. And yeah, and trust your gut if something doesn't feel right.
Massive. Trust that inner voice, because it's taken a while to trust it, but she's smart. She's clever. Yeah. Like she knows what's going on. Ness, what about you? One piece of advice.
Probably, yeah, the same thing. I feel like this holistic space is not new, but it didn't even cross my mind, to be honest, like a few years ago. Didn't even think about, didn't even come into my sphere. So I guess for me, like obviously I am an advocate for medication, because I had tried, like I was eating well, I was exercising, I was doing, you know, what I thought. And for me, you know, the moods just weren't moving. So I do always advocate, I think, for people, you know, for that first step, if it feels really dark, to get there, and then you can add your other parts after. But just trying to like streamline little things. Like I even remember when I had Archie, I would still send Stella to daycare. And I remember some people being like, oh, well, aren't you at home? And I'm like, yeah, but I don't freaking want the two kids at home. Like, she's still going to go so I can sleep, or, you know, do things that's like right for you, just to get you through the day sometimes, or order your groceries online, or whatever it is to, I think sometimes, well, for my brain particularly, it was just knowing where those breaks or something easier was coming in the midst of it was helpful.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so important. Hey, like those little things in the day that when you are really struggling can be a lifesaver, literally.
Yeah.
Jaimie, one piece of advice?
What came through, and I don't know if I'm dancing around, is this: you're not alone. You're not alone. Take the blinkers off, you know, look around you. And it's just to reach out, you know, it doesn't matter if it's to a mom, dad, brother, sister, teacher, friend, not a friend, ring Lifeline, whatever. It's just like, you're not alone. We're not here on this planet to be alone.
Yeah, that's so true. And when you're in it, you feel like the only person that's going through it. Like I remember sitting around like family tables and stuff and being like, I am the only person here that feels like shit. Which is just, it's not true. Not that you wish it on them, but you sit there and you're like, I'm a psycho. Like it's really tough to think that you're in it on your own. And I guess my little snippet of advice would be not to give up. Like no matter how dark, no matter how shit, no matter how far you think that you've gone down that hole, there is always a way out. Always. You can't fuck up your life that bad that you need to, pull the exit chute, because it's just not worth it. So please stay. But yes, I really appreciate you guys joining me. This is just a little chat because I think women especially need to have a lot of connection. Like men need it, but I think we need to bounce ideas off each other. And I think just having the diversity of 4 different people, we're all mums. Yes, we have that in common, but we've got very different stories. And I think it's been really beautiful to unpack this with you. And I'm sure we're going to be talking over Christmas because we're still working on our shit and still being triggered. And, I'm going to have a baby. Kristi's going to have a baby. It's going to be a big Christmas this year. But I really thank you girls so much for jumping on. I love you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.